What is this episode? Logos Media's UnSpun, episode number 209, season 14, episode 5. We are back once again with Dr. Hans Utter for his 50th appearance on the show. Hans, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. My
Welcome,
Irish
man.
father
That's like
accepted
one
Islam
quarter.
over 40
right?
years ago.
You know what? I had
Hey,
the
my
thing
wife is
muted,
also
and
a
it
convert to
started
Islam.
playing dang audio. There, go ahead. Now you can say something that's not going to
Yep.
be playing over us.
That's about what that's an eighth. It's a 1/4 of your shows. So that's a lot.
What's that?
1/4 of the Gnostic Media shows.
Well,
200.
of the that includes Logos Media, the UnSpun shows, the earlier Gnostic Media shows, the RBN Radio Network shows. You did a number on there, so that's 50 for everything, which is probably getting close to 500 shows total.
Okay, so
About
okay.
10% of the total.
Okay, man. Shoot, I was trying. You got so many books behind you. It's intimidating. You know, it's like but, you seem like I've got lots of books, but they're not here. So
Well, I didn't want them all over the house like my last place. It was just every single wall space in the whole house was taken up. So I tried to squeeze most in here, and there's a bunch still in boxes in the garage that I'm going to have to find something to do with. So where do we begin? Mel Gibson's Apocalypto? Where do you want to start?
yeah. Well, this is actually really. I came up with the title. We talked yesterday. I was like, okay, who's gonna? It's a great title. Nothing behind it. No, there's a lot there, a lot to look into. But what sort of, in some ways, well, it made kind of continuation of what we did a couple weeks ago. But I think it's gonna be a little bit different. And so I was inspired because being I was with a bad flu. I didn't die. I don't have COVID. I'm not a COVID carrier, a super spreader. I'm a super spreader of the funk. Yeah, no, I'm talking music, but so I ended up trying to watch film. Most of that is just surprised how bad almost everything is. Just basically sucks. I mean, so many movies, the quality has gone down. But I thought Mel Gibson, okay. I remember seeing Apocalypto, when it came out vaguely, I was
What
probably
was it, like 2006, I think?
Yeah, I was probably on mushrooms. No, I hope not. I would have been traumatized. But I said okay. But I was may have been the cold medication, but I was very impressed with the movie. Just in the way that I think it was pretty much roundly panned by critics, but I mean, huge amount of effort went into that with the historical accuracy, with all the everything, and just filming it and recreating that time. You know what I mean? And that's like a very powerful, mechanism of film. But what started to hit me, I'm watching that film, it's like we're almost living, this is almost like a revelation of what our modern life is like in a certain way, in one way, right? I'll let you go ahead.
Well, I started working on this article exposing the Aztec mushroom death cult years ago. In fact, it was on June 25, 2018 that I posted an article on Facebook discussing the reality of the Aztec mushroom death cult, and people can pause that on screen if they want to read that, but or they can pull it up on my Facebook page here. But I pulled up a bunch of quotes from the Florentine Codex and from Friar Motolinia, from Diego Duran, one of the early Spanish historians, and posted a link to an article from Science Mag. I don't know why the image isn't showing there, but give them full credit. But they had done an expose regarding a temple that was found underneath Mexico City. When the Spanish built Mexico and ended this death cannibalism cult, they built the city directly on top of this old skull temple, and it's since been discovered that the soil around these temples is still 500 years later saturated with human blood. But so that keyed me into an article that I had already been working on, and I've actually started working on it again this last week. I spent a few days doing some more work on it, but and I'm showing on screen here this huge skull temple that they've uncovered in Mexico City that was the Aztecs, and Diego Duran discusses how at Montezuma's coronation, what was it, 1504, 1508 or something like that, they were sacrificing 2,000, 3,000, even up to 8,000 people per day for his coronation ritual. And then they were eating this stuff, and eating the people, and throwing their bodies down the temple, etc. But Diego Duran was shocked, and of course, I've gone through and I've been researching Gordon Wasson's research and how he worked for MKUltra Subproject 58, and I've written some extensive articles on that. I exposed how the work that he did with Professor Carl Ruck was fraudulent. Carl Ruck, of course, was the first interview I ever did on this show. But I exposed how Carl Ruck's creation of the word entheogen was based on entirely false premises. But, so then I started seeing all of these death cult citations that Wasson had, and Wasson was a PR man as well for J.P. Morgan Bank, and he was basically spinning this death cult as a new age, lovey-dovey, ancient religion. And what he did was he went around Mexico and he interviewed various illiterate indigenous people from various tribes all over Mexico, and he cobbled all of this together into a brand new mushroom religion that he sold to the Western youth and hippies to drive tourism into Mexico, and as part of the MKUltra program against the middle-class youth in our own country. And so, Wasson does this whole game to try to play down what the Aztecs were doing, and he says Duran's tone here is so out of harmony with what he had previously said that were we not dealing with a holographic manuscript in his own hand, I would have to ask whether it had to do with an interpolation of a priestly redactor. Such a violent statement. Many men drunk and senseless killing themselves is repeated by white men unacquainted with the hallucinogenic mushrooms, or who have possibly been ill-prepared for the experience and been drunk from alcohol when they took them. And so Wasson spins this whole ad hominem attack about white people. Of course, he's white, and they throw this big attack against the Spanish, but, at what point do we say that we have to give credence to some of what the Spanish chroniclers were saying? And what Wasson did was he omitted the entire first paragraph from Diego Duran's statement, where he says that he's not exaggerating about all of these human sacrifices. And so I went through and I found the original documentation, and it said, and here Diego Duran says, it had become as common among these people to sacrifice men on feast days as it is for us to kill lambs or cattle in the slaughterhouse. I am not exaggerating. There were days in which 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, or 8,000 men were sacrificed. Their flesh was eaten, and the banquet was prepared with it after the hearts had been offered to the devil. When the sacrifice was finished and the steps of the courtyard were bathed in human blood, everyone went out to eat raw mushrooms. And with this food, they went out of their minds and were in a worse state than if they had drunk a great quantity of wine. They became so inebriated and witless that many of them took their lives with their own hands. Under the strong influence of these mushrooms, they saw visions and had revelations about the future, since the devil spoke to them in their drunken madness. And then Wasson goes on to claim that there were no other historical reports supporting this. In fact, there were several others. But Wasson was a PR man, and he was working for the CIA, and he headed MKUltra Subproject 58, which was the popularization of magic mushrooms to the public in the West, and now globally. That's all a continuation of the MKUltra project, and it was kicked off in the May 13, 1957 edition of Life magazine in his article Seeking the Magic Mushroom. And of course, Henry Luce, that owned Time Life magazines, they were, he was in on it as well. He was a CIA guy as well. So that's kind of a rundown. Where do you want to take it from there?
Well, it's interesting that the passage that's at least archive.org, which is really not very good anymore. It used to be a great site, but half the books, you can check it out for 1 hour. When I'm checking out a PDF, a 500-page book for 1 hour, give me a break. You know what I mean?
I didn't know archive.org did that.
Oh, they do it a lot, and especially like a lot of anything you find, almost anything interesting, you have to check the book out. You borrow the PDF, and sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it can go up to 2 hours, but it's not even for a day or 24 hours. It's just like for and you got a huge thing. Then you have to check it out again, and you no longer have access. But the editing out of that Battle for the Mind, like William Sargent, talking about Wasson, his first trip, and how bad it was, like how much he had a really bad trip, and so that is deleted, at least from the archive.org version, and maybe deleted from other print editions of the book. But that shows that little bit that's removed. That must be a very important thing, and it is, right, in that William Sargent, who he talks, the mind control stuff started coming out because the population, there were, especially say in California, where you live, used to be like sort of a hotbed of people pushing back against a lot of this stuff. And some of it was quite organized and politically powerful. And we forget about that, with the total marginalization.
Well, and a lot of that, the pushback was kicked off because of the Charles Manson family cult that killed a bunch of people,
Well, I'm talking about going back to the 1920s. I mean, talking about for... Yeah, and I think in the 60s was not, that was starting to be, demonized. You kind of stole my thunder because I was going to talk about a group that gets away with everything, and you just cannot criticize them, and that's white men, right? You just can't criticize white men. But you just can't do it. No, that was just trying to make you a little nervous there, Jan. He's like, no, he's like, but what I was going to say is that, so the way this stuff infiltrated, right, the society, and I've got a whole bunch of images, but, there's a whole, series of precursors to this process. One of them being prohibition, right? So prohibition, you make alcohol illegal, right? But you have huge amounts of bootleggers, and that's where a lot of the ill-gotten gains of, our erstwhile masters of the universe that control us. And so you have the prohibition, and then that's the jazz age, right? So, and then, but also you have this, starting especially around the 1880s, 1890s, you have this, bringing in of occult magic, things like that into mainstream society. And fast forward, well, I'll go back in time, later. But for example, like I Dream of Jeannie, right? You remember everyone Bewitched,
Oh
you
yeah.
know,
Oh yeah.
and these things, and then you have, of course, Life magazine, which it was almost like a foundational aspect of the whole culture, you know.
I got a question for you, real quick, Hans.
Yeah, sure. Mhm.
Who wrote the book on allowing churches to continue to use wine during Prohibition?
Do not know that. No idea.
Get this. Can you see that?
Ah, father of Gordon Wasson.
The father of Gordon Wasson. That's right. No joke. And Reverend E.A. Wasson, Ph.D.
Yeah, and obviously there's you have the guilt by association, in that just because your parents did something doesn't mean you do it. But you see the Huxley family. I mean, all the way going back generation to generation. Wait, right? I said Aldous Huxley. Oh, I get to take a drink, right? Isn't that your game?
Yeah, well, we haven't played that for a while, but for a long time, every
This is
time,
this is
every
this is
time.
the
Well, and well, see, the issue
no,
was
I turned
we
my
never
camera.
got through an episode where the audience wasn't wasted.
Well, this is all I have, so I don't think that's going to get me wasted. That's all I have. But anyways, to your point, or to my point, I guess, is that the way this has been normalized, and the ritual aspect of creating the space where these public rituals can occur, and I've talked about this a lot, on our previous shows, but there's like kind of almost like a hardwired biological imperative to fit in with the group, which is your tribe, right? So back in the Paleolithic era, if you go against your tribe, you get cast out, you're going to die. Basically, that's a death sentence, right? It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to move from Boise, Idaho to LA and, dye my hair purple. No, it's not like that. You were out. And so that, especially females, I mean, there's you have Magto, men going their own way,
MGTOW, yeah.
Magto, MGTOW, or incel. And so there's a lot of this real anti-female rhetoric, right, in
Well,
there.
and anti-family as well, because first the CIA created the feminists, and then they created the male version of the feminists in MGTOW, but it's all anti-family stuff. And because the feminists have attacked men, well, we're going to attack the women. So it gets nobody anywhere. It's all soft kill eugenics.
Yeah, well, that destruction of the family, but then this is like the old, what is it? 59th anniversary is like a Jimi Hendrix song, So you say I can't play any music. I'm not going to sing. I do have an auto tuner in my studio. Studio's up and running. Without auto tune, I won't sing. But basically, so say you want to get married, now it's our, basically the song's, it's like a B-side single, but the girl convinces him to get married. And it goes through all their different anniversaries, and every 5 years, 10 years, they get more and more miserable, and by the end, the last anniversary, they want to basically kill each other or whatever. But that's the thing of marriage like a prison. Well, not only marriage, but marriage is the roles of male and female and all this stuff. So when you have men going their own way, it's like, and then you have the other side of that as a pickup artist, right? Where you use all the NLP techniques, like Neil Strauss, wrote that book. And these guys, you think about it, is that, it's so, I mean, at least at a certain age, for me, you don't want to hear about, oh, I just did this with this chick and that. I mean, when you're what I mean is a lot of that's almost for bragging rights, right?
Yeah.
But then if you're going to go ahead and you're going to psychologically manipulate women to sleep with you, and you can sleep with, 10 women a week, that's held up as a paragon of manhood. And then being the responsible, father of, holding a family together is seen as the responsibility of the cuckold or the wimp, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then you have this stuff, the female stuff where, they'd like hate, oh, everything is bad because of women and da da da. Well, back to, what I said, originally women, generally speaking, biologically are conditioned to be more resonant with the sort of the societal norms, right? Because they want to keep family together, right? And this is, you know what I mean? This is, and that's something that's almost hardwired. And this has been so manipulated where certain types of discourse are verboten, right? There, you talk about something, you're suddenly classified. You know, you're a right wing extremist. There's or left wing extremist possibly. I don't know. As long as white men are gone, it's going to be fine, dude. That's what we're going. No, just kidding. That's the problem.
White male privilege,
Yeah, I'm so.
You're not supposed to work for your family and your children and their future because that's a racist white privilege behavior because other cultures apparently don't care about their families. So for them to get ahead, you got to push one group down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's per their own logic. I mean, I'm not saying that, but that seems to be the logic that they use for this stuff.
Yeah. So let me just okay, you disabled my screen sharing, man.
I did. I didn't. Yeah. But here, let me see if. Geez, how do I allow you to share? I didn't change your settings at all.
I just got the host disabled.
Huh. Here, let me. Sorry. Here, all participants. Try it now.
Okay. And so share. So this is going back to our favorite
Hank Harrison.
Topic. Hank Harrison, who
Courtney Love's dad. I talked to him once or twice.
Yeah, and I know people know him, and he's like a nice guy or whatever. But he's at the Presidio gun emplacement, right? So why that's important is Hank Harrison was he's one that sort of put the Grateful Dead into sort of an intellectual context, right? But at the same time, he did reveal a lot. But the Presidio military, Presidio is, of course, we have who was there? Anyone from the audience?
Oh, Michael Aquino.
Michael Aquino, and there's even some Mayan, symbolism there at the Presidio encampment. But this idea, and I won't play my interview quotes from Jerry and Owsley, just because like I said, I don't want to have that happen again. But here's a Grateful Dead. I mean, this looks really. It's real positive, family friendly, right? Look at that. So these are these images, right? This is I believe that it's from Hank's book, but so you see that the skull with the roses, Rosicrucian, the colors, and all that. So it is a death ritual, and that's actually what they're talking about, is that these concerts are a ritual. They're a ritual enactment. And it's like you go through birth and death. It's a hero's journey, blah, blah, blah. I don't sound as good as Jerry. Yeah, man, it's you go through birth. And actually, Jerry is he's a smart guy. He's he was military intelligence, so he wasn't just some hack, noodling on his guitar, playing the longest guitar solo, they will, but so this stuff though is so much interlocked. I'll share one last picture.
Well, and for those who want more on this specific topic, they can go by and watch my series, Hans, Laying the Dead to Rest, and we go into great depth on all of this.
Yeah, so here's some excavations of like child sacrifice, right there where the bones are buried. This is from a Mayan thing. So, but you can see the similarity almost sort of with some of the Grateful Dead imagery and this and that. And of course, this is not just the Grateful Dead. This is, many, many other groups. But this, this whole project, is dependent on a lot of forces, over time, and we're sort of witnessing the end game. But part of that is that everyone thinks they're becoming an initiate, right? They think, oh, well, if I become a punk rocker, or I'm not saying people think this per se, but it's almost like you become an initiate. You can become a god among men. You read the Perennial Philosophy, and then you can become enlightened. Or you go to a Dead show and take LSD or whatever it may be. But actually, you are the sacrifice, right? You
Right.
are there as a sacrifice, or else, is the higher up you go, the more people you're going to bring down with you. Unless you become, maybe you can, fight your way to the top of the pyramid. But of course, that pyramid, the top points down, right? The
Well,
top.
and we, and a lot of people, and we had exposed years ago the Altamont concert where they sacrificed, what's his name? I forget his name now off the top of my
Green,
head.
wasn't it Green something?
Uh, I forget his name, but they sacrificed him, and George Lucas was the cameraman for the whole thing, and I think that's how he got his edge. And then who owned the Presidio? Going back to that, George Lucas.
George Lucas.
George
So,
Lucas.
George Lucas owned the Presidio military base.
Yeah, after they closed it down as a military base.
Oh, okay. Oh, so he owned it. Okay, I didn't know, man. That's yeah. Well, but you see, like, so Star Wars. Well, one of the things that really got me in Apocalypto is, maybe bring that up. But I mean, Mel Gibson should have credit for being a really first class filmmaker. Really excellent. I mean, I don't care whatever the critics say. I watch so many movies; they're all so bad. Most of them. But that is like what he did is amazing accomplishment. And even doing a little bit on film, I mean, I have some understanding of that. It's a massive project. But one thing you notice is so much of the imagery from Star Wars is coming directly from Mayan sources, right? That human, sacrifice type of cult.
Well, you see the hairstyles that Mel Gibson portrays in the temple sacrifices and stuff like that, and when they're in the Maya, when they bring the slave captures in for sacrifice, they're showing the hair and all of that. And then you had noticed them painting the slaves blue before they sacrificed them. Oh, Meredith Hunter, that was the guy's name that they sacrificed at the Rolling Stones concert.
Well, why did I think of Green? I don't know. But yeah, Meredith. Well, there was some connection with the color green he was wearing or whatever. But here's the example. Well, let me just show you. I'll share this real quick. So this is like the stage setup, right? So I mean, and that Altamont was such a very, very important concert. I mean, it is really a major cultural event. So here's of course, you have the Hell's Angels.
Angels, and then
you got your Crowleyan mystical symbol on the stage, and then
Mick Jagger was wearing red and black, and he was symbolized as Satan in the concert.
Yeah, and so the film, and this was the concert itself. There's many. I guess concert, what do you call it? Concert movies. There's been tons, there always have been, but this was like the first like meta concert movie, right? Where we're making a concert film. It's not like you just like Woodstock is kind of like, you're there. It's like the camera and all that makes you like a participant, right? You're, God's eye view or low, close, short, close shots, It's like you're there. But Gimme Shelter, the movie, which was filmed for Altamont, was set up as, we're, that self, they call it, the postmodern or whatever, the meta level. We're making a film. We're going to be really self-conscious making a film. And what does the film open with? Mick Jagger watching the footage of the ritual sacrifice in the cutting room,
Yeah.
And so it's the first, obviously probably not, it's not the first snuff film, but it literally is a snuff film, in that he's watching this sacrifice. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. Rewind it again. Sorry, I can't do any British accent. Every accent I do comes out like it sounds Indian. I can't help it. I don't know. It's really fucked up.
You got the Punjab
I can't help it, man. I don't know. God bless me. But anyways, though, but that film, that was so important. And just chime in if you want to, but I'll bring up a few things about Altamont.
You wanna? Are
Um,
you still gonna? Are we still going on this image on screen here?
I can take it off. Okay. It's so great to see Mick
Oh,
dance like
yeah.
Jagger, right? Remember that song? But well, one of the things interesting with that, or one of the many things, is that in the movie they changed the backing music. Instead of "Sympathy for the Devil," it was like whatever they swapped out the songs, right? So even though they were playing "Sympathy for the Devil," not symphony but sympathy, right? They were playing that song. They had different music in the soundtrack, and it was edited to hide that, right? But that whole concert was set up for that sacrifice. But that sacrifice was not just a single person getting killed by the Hells Angels, right? It was, it connects like with the Wicker Man, and that concert, which was a free concert, and guess who else also played there? Grateful Dead, right?
Yeah.
Yep, answered the question. But that concert was the death knell for the entire spiritual quest, the peace and love, the optimism of the 60s, right? That was it. And then, you have, of course, Owsley and, of course, other people, they're cutting the LSD with, STP, and, other drugs. So the LSD is getting really nasty, right? People are getting really bad trips. You have this very pure LSD, and then they start cutting it, and then it's like you're getting psychosis, right? You can get permanent psychosis from some of these substances that have a longer time before they kick in. So you take 3 or 4 more doses, and you're psychotic, maybe permanently, or just going the worst kind of paranoia you can imagine. Well, this is what's happening. This killed the whole dream of the 60s, right? This was, Altamont is really the tail end, like boom, it's like a brick wall. All your peace, love, happiness, boom, you just ran into a brick wall with this debacle. But of course, it wasn't a debacle, right? It was a ritual. And of course, guess who was there at the concert? Guess who was fleeing their captors? The great action hero, right? The Jason Bourne, of who? Timothy Leary, right? Timothy Leary, who was like public enemy #1, is allowed to fly back in and is on stage when that sacrifice happens. He's there. He got back in the country. This guy, escaping from prison and fleeing to Europe, and then flying from Europe and coming to the concert and standing on stage, and on the anniversary, right, of the ritual that Aleister Crowley performed in the deserts of Algeria to the chronozone, this demonic entity who's actually related to Kronos, right? We go to the Greek gods. So Timothy Leary, Aleister Crowley reenacted this. Well, he actually did this ritual. He took this very promising young poet who was a quote unquote sodomite, as they said in that day, and Crowley wasn't gay, but he needed to be sodomized to do this satanic ritual in the middle of the desert, right? So this poet, Crowley is very, hot stuff, I guess, mountain climber. That's before he became this, bald-headed fat junkie. But basically, he had to be sodomized to do this ritual. The poet went insane, right? After being stuck in the desert doing this ritual, because just like Crowley, well, they say, is that, he'll open the gate for this demon, but then he's not able to close the gate. So just like he did at Loch Ness, right, where the house that Jimmy Page bought. But anyways, so he did this ritual to summon this very, very powerful demonic force, which is like, bringing about, the Whore of Babylon and all this stuff. I mean, very powerful. That exact date, and I think it was like 66 years later, well, Leary and his buddy, I don't think it was Brian Jensen, but one of his, hangers-on, mirrored that same Crowleyan ritual in Algeria. And then on the 66th anniversary, he's flown in, and Altamont takes place exactly at that date and time.
And that's for the Man on the Mountain. For those of you who don't know, that's a signal to Hassani Sabah, who did the the whole. He was the creator of the assassins, and that's where the term hashish comes from. He would get the people high and then plant them in different places and then activate them to commit assassinations later on. And he created this sort of drug paradise, Garden of Eden, with all these virgins and stuff and food to lap on to the assassins that he was creating, so that they would want to be in his paradise in the afterlife after they committed these assassins. And who else was a big fan of Hassani Sabah other than Timothy Leary, but Mick Jagger? And you and I years ago played a video clip, and I don't have that handy. I'm sure it's on my hard drive somewhere, of Mick Jagger bragging about Hassani Sabah and that whole Man on the Mount cult.
Yeah, no, Hassani Sabah, uh, the Hakim Bey, who's the pedophile
Peter Lamborn
author
Wilson, yep.
author of the Temporary Autonomous Zone, which was is the founding document for the Burning Man cult.
Exactly.
And so my first novel, which will be published soon, like many others, but I was doing a lot of research into that, and this is when I could still access university libraries. They still actually had books, which I actually why I ended up going to graduate school, because I was working as a musician, and I was like, well, I started going to university library and like writing this book, and I researching it. But Peter Lamborn Wilson is one of the sources on that. And he's a good writer, but he's connected. I mean, absolutely connected big time with this pedophilia, but then the temporary autonomous zone.
He was a member of NAMBLA.
He's a big time. I mean, in fact, I do believe that I had met him accidentally in India. There was like a room, in some kind of crappy hotel, and I was supposed to meet somebody. So it was someone famous you should meet. And I walked in, was down, and it was this really, he just had a really bad aura in that space. And there was a couple young boys, and they seemed weird, and they had eyeshadow. And this guy was there, which I believe, Peter Lamborn Wilson, or was supposed to be. And I didn't even talk. I just basically, it was such a weird vibe. You know what I mean? You go down and there's a guy like lounging, whatever, the Sultan with these boys. It was really weird and unpleasant. That was in my mind. But anyways, that's the temporary autonomous zone, and the Hashishans is one example of, actually the word assassin, right? The word assassin came from Hashishan. So Hashishan was the fact that they were taken, intoxicated, and it's still that religious, group is still extant today. I mean, it's called there's different. I won't get into the whole like.
Well, and the Cacophony Society was also behind the Temporary Autonomous Zone, which became Burning Man, and Larry Harvey, who is heading up the Burning Man thing. But the Cacophony Society was out of the Merry Pranksters, who were part of the CIA's promotion of psychedelics. Stuart Brand, Tim Leary, Augustus Stanley Barrosley, Dorothy Fadiman, Ken Kesey, of course, Neil Cassidy, Tim Scully, one of the big LSD pushers, Wavy Gravy. But, I have a video clip of Leary admitting that the Merry Pranksters were undercover agents. And then there was more than one bus. They always portrayed the whole thing as that they had one bus, but I had started doing research years ago. I found at least 5 or 6 different buses that they used. And, you start looking at the bus design, the front grills, totally different buses. But what the public was told was that there was always one bus. But they had a number of them in different places in the country at the same time.
Yeah, well, that, speaking of that, I'll pull this up here. I just pray a little bit that connect with that. I'm glad you brought that up, man. You gave me a nice segue. Okay, here we go. Second.
Here, while you're looking for that, I'm going to show The
I already got. I'm not looking at it, man. It's already. I got
all right.
4 monitors going. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've
Yeah.
only got 3 monitors, so you're probably ahead of me. I was just going to show Leary's statement about the buses running around the country painted in day glow. Let's see. So here's that quote here, and it says, and it's Timothy Leary, admitted CIA agent. He says, "Our undercover agents in Los Angeles were very cool, and yet they were more in a very laid-back way. Let's see, and it's been every bit as public as you know. The buses running around the country painted in day glow." But he's admitting here that their undercover agents were Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters running around the country in buses painted in day glow. And that's from, that's from the LSD 1979 MK Ultra reunion party video, where he straight out admits that all of those people were agents.
Well, and that was, like I will play, maybe we'll consult the I Ching to see if I can play these clips of them talking about that. But one of the clips I had ready was Jerry talking about when they go to small town America, they're bringing this chaos, just like the magic bus and the magic buses that were going around the country. And that's, I mean, there's, it's not like, it's not like everything has happened and, they've won, so to speak. But basically, they were going around and, it's, look, you can drink. You're probably not going to die when you drink. You can, but you can take cocaine. You may overdose, but you can take LSD and be permanently psychotic, or else not know who and what you are, for the rest of your life, and be basically you're permanently encoded with this, these forces. And actually, I had my stuff ready. Now I lost my Zoom, and I'm just looking at PowerPoint. I guess I gotta quit PowerPoint. Okay, and okay, there we go. But yeah. So this, but think about this, right? It's not. You think about, oh, it's really cool. Well, it's like, you got like the movie Picture of Dorian Gray, which is
Yep.
one of the few decent. Well, it's not. It's okay. It's okay. But
we went into Oscar Wilde with Steve Jones a week or two ago too, and that whole thing, and that was all part of the Hellfire Club, which was a big satanic cult.
Well, but that idea of corrupting, because Dorian Gray, after he's basically sold his soul to Satan or whatever, or with the picture that keeps getting changed, he doesn't. He's tasted every pleasure you can have, anything, orgiastic, whatever, and he'll never age, never. But then he gets his pleasure from corrupting others, right? And you think about Hollywood, right? The casting couch. How many people with their dreams of stardom have gone to Hollywood, have gone to the music industry, etc. Trying to become something and go through all these processes of degradation and corruption, and many are lost and destroyed, right? And so that's that's an example of this whole reversion, this reversal of value. But it's also it's not that tricky of a point, but it's like they give the kids version of what the satanic elites are doing, so you too can be like, it's like you can be an action hero. Oh, you too can go and seduce virgins in college and whatever. You too can emotionally manipulate women. You too can take what I'm saying. So it's like you get your own little like junior version of what the elites are doing. At the same time, you're still nothing. You're a sacrifice, and what you're sacrificing is your human essence, the essence of your soul.
Well,
The
they
essence of your
design the
spirit.
ritual, and then they get the youth and the unwitting to follow along and essentially recreate it, but they're actually the sacrifice when they follow along.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let me go ahead and let me share this thing here if I can share it. I'll go through this pretty quickly, but that was good. Located this. Let's see if I can do full screen slideshow. Okay, here we go. So yeah, I won't go through the whole thing, but so this magic bus, right? All aboard the magic bus. So the bus, you know, it's the bus takes you to school, right? The school bus. And there's so many things. I mean, but this is connecting with children, right? Not adults, right? But and it's it's connecting with your childlike aspect. So yeah, so yeah, and you get on the bus. You're not driving the car, in especially one of these buses, right? So you go to your you become part of the merry pranksters. They're controlling you, right? You no longer your will is subsumed, right? And that's kind of what the psychedelic experience can be. A lot of times is where these forces from outside of you, and even if they're your own subconscious projections, you're not in control of them, right? Which is one of the factors that helps generate schizophrenia. But and so you have the magic theater of the mind, right? The dream theater. And this is like this ties in with light and sound experimentation. The Princeton Radio Project.
Yep.
And they created these rooms, these immersion rooms or spaces, right? Where it's more real than reality, right?
Well,
That's
and
all.
that's Owsley's Wall of Sound that he created for the Grateful Dead as well.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, Owsley, another one of these guys that, well, he's high level tech guy with military, Air Force, whatever, and then suddenly he's manufacturing LSD and building these sound systems.
Yep.
And he's and like Jerry, this guy Jerry had top secret military clearance, working with nuclear missile silos, and then suddenly just gets a dishonorable discharge. Give me a break. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna get it, if you reach that stage where you have top secret clearance and you're working with nuclear, if you get a dishonorable, you're not gonna get a dishonorable discharge. You're gonna get court-martial. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you know what I'm saying? But
well,
of course
that's the agenda of the whole, or the modus operandi of the whole '60s rock and roll culture. Is everybody is, as we discussed, and as I discussed in my shows with Dave McGowan, was all of the major '60s and early '70s rock stars were sons and daughters of intelligence and/or were intel themselves.
Yeah. I'll go through this real quick, and I'll but we'll use what you do. You're creating a narrative, right? And look at this cultural narrative that we're in right now, right? Is that, and you have the Neil. You look at Neil Young, right? Neil Young. Oh, I'm so edgy. I'm a hero. You know what I mean? He got kicked off Spotify. You guys with Rogan, and I won't go into that whole story, but so you're targeting the audience. The audience is also targeting the consciousness. It's targeting the awareness of the world that you inhabit. It's you know what I mean? It's all that. I'll skip the verbalization technique. So the use of inner narrative, inner dialogues, constructing. It's basically like, the thoughts that you think are your own are not your own, right? You're living all these encoded narratives. You're viewing like say a female is looking, every man should be like Cary Grant or like Hugh Hefner. At least just don't, that about Hugh Hefner? Don't own a dog. You know about that?
No.
Oh man. So I'll stop share real quick. So Hugh Hefner, there's a new big A&E like documentary on Hugh Hefner, but one of the big revelations is that not only that he basically gathered dirt on a lot of his celebrity guests to quote unquote protect protect his reputation, but was involved in grooming, underage sex, but also raping dogs. He was a really into bestiality. They say towards the end of the last several decades of life, he preferred dogs to females. And his like one of his long term partners, I don't know if he's married, but she was out. She came back, and he was you know making it with her dog.
Wow.
And so he was into I mean, that's sorry to be so graphic there, but I mean, he's far more depraved than even we knew, even though, of course, as the pamphleteer of Kinsey, right? So Hugh Hefner is one face of this, right? One face, like the new man, like the Hugh Hefner is like the new man, the playboy, right? This is a hip, whatever thing, but the guy's totally depraved, and you can look it up, and I won't go into all the details, but there's even he loved watching. Various sources talk about he loved one of his favorite genres of cinema was snuff films. Oh, okay.
Wow.
All right. Yeah. So I'm sorry. Hopefully, no one got.
I wonder how many of these murders and missing persons cases are actually snuff films. Good grief. And then, when we go back and look at this this psychedelic thing, the whole thing was about promoting debauchery and iniquity, the whole thing. And the public was the sacrifice, the sacrificial lamb, so to speak. And so you read my article, what did I call the thing? Flesh of the Gods, Teonanacatl and the Aztec Mushroom Death Cult. What did you think of that?
Oh, that's a great article, well written and very. It's really it's really central. I'm going back to Apocalypto, that kind of inspired me in this a little bit. Is that it is this ritual human sacrifice. In this case, now the sacrifice of humanity, or a large portion of humanity, is ongoing. I mean, it's that, I don't know enough. I wonder if you know this, and there's I've been looking at some interesting sources about Satanism, even in the 8th, 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, and how developed and advanced the Satanic Church was. And we're not the Church of Satan, not Anton LaVey, but real. Right. The real thing.
Well, that's, and years ago I had done shows exposing the whole Salem fakery was a huge satanic ritual, and Cotton Mather was behind he was the main guy heading the trials, and then they were doing human inoculation experiments, and his protege was Ben Franklin. And Ben Franklin's brother, James, is who wrote the pro-inoculation propaganda pamphlets, and he's who made the term yellow journalism famous for his propaganda writing. But he's who founded the American version of the Hellfire Club, which we see in a picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde that Steve Jones and I have been exposing so much of lately. But what I want to do, just let me segue for about a minute or two here. I'm going to read these quotes from the Aztec informants to Friar Bernardo de Sahugan, and these are from the 16th century, early 17th, I forget now. But here I'm gonna go through these, and then I'll pass it back over to you. And this is from Book 10, The People of the Florentine Codex. One of noble lineage is a follower of the exemplary life, a taker of the good examples of others, a seeker, a follower of the exemplary life. The good one of noble lineage is a student, teachable, indoctrinated. He follows the exemplary life. He sets forth the exemplary life. The bad one of noble lineage is a scandalizer, a flatterer, a drinker, besotted drunk. He goes about becoming crazed. He goes about eating datura, stramonium, and mushrooms. He becomes vain, brazen. And if ladies and gentlemen, as I read this, just think of these quotes in terms of your modern day hippie and how they are using this Aztec death cult as a model for MK Ultra to promote psychedelics to the youth today. And the lewd youth is a madman. He goes about drinking crude wine, a drunkard, foolish, dejected, a drunk, a sot. He goes about eating mushrooms. He goes about demented. He is restless, dissolute, shameless, presumptuous, lewd, tattling, wicked, a vile brute, brazen. He is impudent. He consumes his inner substance. He is vain, proud, debauched, a pleasure seeker, a libertine, revolting, filthy, vicious, a keeper of mistresses, a talker. He lives in concubinage. He is driven to pleasure. And then another noble woman is of nobility. She belongs to the order of rulers, comes from the rulership, whether she is legitimate or a bastard child. The good noble woman is one who is bashful, ashamed of evil, who does things with timidity, who is embarrassed by evil. She works willingly, voluntarily. The bad noble woman is infamous, very audacious, stern, proud, very stupid, brazen, besotted, drunk. She goes about besotted. She goes about demented. She goes about eating mushrooms. And then this one is my favorite here. The carnal woman is an evil woman who finds pleasure in her body, who sells her body, repeatedly sells her body. An evil young woman or an evil old woman. Besotted, drunk, very drunk, much besotted, dejected, perverse, a sacrificial victim, a bathed slave, a captive, full of affliction, mortal. She consumes her inner substance, a brazen, a proud, a dissolute woman of debauched life, a fraud, gaudy, fastidious, vain, petty. She is oblivious of what all know her to be, a petty old woman, a free yielder of herself, a whore from the brothel, a deflowered one, a lascivious old woman of itching buttocks, an old woman of itching buttocks, an aged woman, a flabby old woman, a filthy one, a filthy old dog who brings herself to ruin like a dog. She parades, she moves about lasciviously, she is pompous. Whoever she seduces, whomever she sets her heart on one, she brings him to ruin. She makes herself beautiful, she arrays herself. She is haughty. She appears like a flower, looks gaudy, arrays herself gaudily. She views herself in a mirror, carries a mirror in her hand. She bathes, she takes a sweat bath, she washes herself, she anoints herself with axen, constantly anoints herself with axen. She lives like a bathed slave, acts like a sacrificial victim. She goes about with her head high, rude, drunk, shameless, eating mushrooms. She paints her face, variously paints her face. Her face is covered with rouge, her cheeks are colored, her teeth are darkened, rubbed with cochineal. Half her hair falls loose, half is round around her head. She arranges her hair like horns. She goes about haughty, shameless, head high, vain, filthy, given to pleasure. She lives in vice. I mean, if that's not your typical hippie right there, I don't know what is, right?
Well, yeah, one thing that jumped out at me was from the first part was he consumes his inner substance,
Yep.
inner essence, right? And that's what that is. And notice that every single statement is a type of degradation or a type of egoism, of vanity, but even the body, even the the dissolution, right? Of you like that's why Picture Dorian Gray is I think is interesting. There's a newer version. It's pretty good. It's not like amazing, but it's decent. But as he does all these depraved acts, the picture stays. His outward image is the same, right? It's like the media, right? It's like the spectacle, the spectacular image, the image that's put on view. But the degradation, in this case, even the celebration of the dissolute person, where their body, like like the old, I mean, we've probably seen it. And I don't want to bash, either males or females in this in this thing, but think of like the old barfly female. I mean, it just, there's something, there's almost a point where it's not even pitiful anymore. It's just, I mean, it's this total, it's celebrating the degradation. And so I'll just hit this, the PowerPoint. I have like 3 separate PowerPoints, right? So I got to roll the PowerPoint out. Okay. So look at this. So we look at this basic like tripartite template, and this is just, of course, one of many, but decode, encode, engage. So decoding is, in this case, decoding, this is referring to like a type of narrative warfare, information warfare, right? So you're decoding, you are taking apart, right, the structure of the society, right? You're taking apart, like just saying, well, you're a man if you cheat on your wife, or if you don't have any responsibility, or what I mean, or you get drunk and go to football games, and what I mean, like, or you're just an arrogant piece of shit with no responsibility. That's a man, right? Look at Wolf of Wall Street. That's an example of decoding. Encoding is creating a new value system. Engaging is taking these sort of mind level, meta level categories and turning these into new social forms. And in this quote, I'll read Sven Hughes: a weaponized narrative is a form of non-kinetic warfare that seeks to undermine an opponent's supporters' identity and will. It is messaging that generates confusion or political and social schisms that are in line with the creator's tactical and strategic aims. It is language that is designed to create specific perception and behavior changes to help one side against the other. You're welcome to chime in there if you want to, but
yeah, well, that's exactly what we see going on, and that's it's spot on.
Yeah, and then so Magical Mystery Tour, get on the bus, and of course this bus, what is a bus? The virtual reality bus, right? The 6G, mind body symbiosis, right? That's the modern version of LSD that Jerry was talking about in 1992, and even earlier. So this was envisioned, the magical theater of the mind, Hermann Hesse. That's in the 1930s or 40s, and then you have the actual integration of that, or the beginning of the developments of that, with all these different photic driving, basically psychotronic, non-invasive psychotronic technology, basically. But so the Magical Mystery Tour. So yeah, but that's another example, sort of the Magical Mystery Tour, which I watched, and there's some really screwed up things in that. But this is not just us. This is the whole picture, right? We have gotten on the bus. The whole world is almost on the bus. Are you on the bus or off the bus, right? And that's the distinction. Ken Kesey, are you on the bus or off the bus? Well, when you're off the bus, it means you're free. When you're on the bus, it means that, what I mean? It's you're, but that it's see that inversion?
They're taking you away, but they're making it sound like the bus is the freedom when you don't have the freedom because you're being piloted by the bus driver, being taken where he's got you scheduled to take you.
But just notice roll up, right? Roll up. So you got to roll up your joint, right? But roll up, it's normally roll out the beer barrels, right? Roll out the beer barrels. We'll have a barrel of fun.
Yeah.
I'll bust out my accordion. I'll do some beer. But roll up. You roll up a body in a body bag, right? You roll up. You take it down. So, and then coming to take you away, and it's taking you away. It's not, so it's, it's possessing you. You're deciding to become possessed and then dying to take you away. So in this context, right? Oh, I'm dying to see you. But in this case, dying to take you away, take you today. This is yourself as it's encoded in, the very complex lyrics of, the Ericksonian hypnosis language of John Lennon, right? His lyrics are amazing mind control programming documents. They really are. But this is, you can see it right there, right? And
Yep.
then, of course, and then there's, look, I am the walrus. Look at these guys. These
Yep.
friendly, these lovable ragamuffins, right? They look, these are like the masks worn, and based on my research, right, of the way, Satanism from the 13th, 12th, 13th century on. Many of the leaders, not that, church, sorry, I should use the Church of Satan, but, these occult satanic groups, most of them were connected with the Catholic Church, or in that, as you see in Eyes Wide Shut, right, which is now based on my research is extremely realistic. In the Rothschild mansion there, it's very realistic portrayal of what actually goes on in these rituals. But the reason that the priest, someone, from the church, and these sort of underground sects of this, which is quite interesting. I've got a bunch of material on that, but anyways, was because the transubstantiation, right? You needed someone who understood, had some power, potency in the transubstantiation, right? Communion, you're having a sip of wine. Having a sip of wine that's, charged with spiritual meaning is not the same as, taking 20 hits of LSD or whatever and going to an orgy. I mean, there's a big difference there, right? And that's what that going back to E.A. Watson. But I hope you're following me there, but that makes sense, is that what do you call it? The process of this. So these are like ritual masks, right? These are the masks of the demonic entities that you're voluntarily allowing to take you away. And it's not fun. Look at those horns, right? I mean, this is, these are the, whatever, the things. And then we go.
You just reminded me, when we were doing the shows on, the Princeton Radio Research Project, and we did the show on the unveiling the whole War of the Worlds thing as an OSS operation in the 1930s. But in the building right next to the Mudd Library at Princeton, when I was there, doing all that research, they had all of those masks lined up in front of the very next building.
Did they really?
In statues, yeah. You know what? I wonder if I can find that, because man, that was some weird stuff. And I saw that, and I was flashing back to that film that you just mentioned.
Magical Mystery Tour.
No. The other one. Come on, Kubrick's film.
Oh yeah, Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut, right. So now you've got me wondering if I can find that. The photos of that, so I'm gonna have to dig in my computer. What year was that? Was that 2015?
No. Eyes Wide Shut.
No. When I was doing the research at,
at
Princeton, I was spending hours on the phone with you every day. Remember that?
Yeah. I was talking to you when you're at the library, right?
Right. Yeah. We were constantly talking, and I was calling you up. Oh my God! I just found this.
And the War of the Worlds thing. I mean, that was that. Not to toot our own horns or whatever, but that was...
Go ahead.
No, that was... okay. I should get a clown horn, but... No, that was important. I mean, these spectacular. Spectacular not as, amazing spectacle, but spectacular as these artificially created events that are interpreted and coded as reality.
I found it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I found it. Now, let's see if I can get a good... Okay, look at this. All right. So this building right behind, the brown building there, I spent like, I don't know, 3 weeks in there probably doing research. That's where I found all the documents in the Princeton Radio Research Project. Now, and on Wasson and the CFR archives. Now, these are the head masks that you see in all of these rituals going across here. All these statue heads. You got a pig, a dog, a rooster, a monkey, a ram, a horse. Can't tell what that one is. You got a dragon head, a rabbit, a cat, a bull, and something else there. But I'm looking at this, and I'm standing there at Princeton going, what the hell, you know?
Well, there's a whole, I mean, and that's there's those classic pictures of the like the Rothschild mansion, party. You know what I mean? That's like from the 70s, I think. But that, like I said, based on my research into how advanced and how many different things were already going on, by like Fin de Siècle, they say end of the century, Gustav Klimt, that painter. If I could show an image of him, but all this stuff that was going on, but that mask wearing was so central to that. And I'll just hit this so I don't not finish it. So this if you could bring up some images, that'd be amazing. But that's so interesting. That's at the Princeton Library, because I don't think we even caught on that at the time. But
Well,
it just
I did. It did click in my head because of Eyes Wide Shut, and Earl Lee just asked how many statues were there. There are 12 there, but
12.
It's all I could think about. And that's probably significant astrologically as well. But when I saw that, I was just like, wow, these are some really crazy, bizarre statues that match up with what you see, in Wicker Man and Eyes Wide Shut and all of these rituals that they put on these masks, like the Beatles you just showed.
Yeah, yeah, and so I won't get into. There's a numerology in that picture right there. So some other pictures, the Eggman, and then look, John's got his
Horns.
Little heart. And in fact, in that scene, there's a little girl on the bus. He's like talking to her.
Yeah.
It's going to kind of slightly inappropriate way. But the Eggman, right? Goo goo goo, I'm the Wallers. Anyways, so hygiene, mental hygiene, right? This is part of the Kurt Lewin, right? Hey, I didn't mispronounce it, but this psychological topology, and this idea of the, you and Cameron mention all the time, those books are now, erased. Good luck finding them unless you want to spend thousands of dollars. But talking about the contagion of psychosis, the contagion of insanity. Insanity is being a mass contagion, and music is being a way of doing that. So Thomas Carlson, a UN guy, without hygiene of the mind, every social system among men and women would break to pieces. What is hygiene of the mind? So notice this mental hygiene that connects with the United Nations. This ties into Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, on and on. Ties into communitarianism. But Gustave Le Bon, who, we had the last thing we talked about was the mass generation, mass whatever.
Psychology of the masses or whatever. I have the book on the table in the other room.
Yeah, but the thing is, Gustave Le Bon, again, crowd psychology, and the knowledge of the endocrinal system and all this stuff on the basis of the mind was well known and was basically suppressed. In fact, Freud even wrote about this, but then it goes into this narrative, this verbal narrative structure. But this quote, Gustave Le Bon, the slave of all unconscious activity of his spinal cord, which his hypnotizer directs at will. So your spinal cord, right? This is not just, that thing, decode, encode, engage. It's not just a narrative, right? It's not just situational, but this is being imprinted on your nervous system, on your body, on your spinal column. This is he consumes his own essence, right? The masturbator consumes his own essence, but also you consume your own essence, your body, your mind, these things that are not normal, unless you're like a martial arts master or some, enlightened saint, you can't access these parts of your body or direct them, or your mind. But Anyways, his spinal cord. This is known about 1890s, 1850s. The hypnotizer directs at will. The conscious personality is entirely vanished. Will and discernment are lost. So that's the serpent, right? That's a Quetzalcoatl. That's the spine is also the serpent, right? The serpent power is the spine. The spine is a serpent inside the man. And of course you have the reptilian brain, right? As the head of the serpent, you know? Um, and then last thing I'm talking about, spectacular. So when I use that word spectacular, I'm talking about, the simulacrum. Simulacrum is a copy without an original, right?
Yeah.
It's a so people don't know the word simulacrum, but it's a very important word to understand because
They bring that about in the Matrix. When he goes to follow, he's reading the book, and the girl with the tattoo of the rabbit, and he follows the rabbit out. That's all about the simulacrum.
Yeah, and it's a copy without an original. It is an artificial. It's a representation of something that doesn't exist, but yet it's taken, that representation is takes on a reality, right? So anyways, Guy Debord, the spectacle is not a collection of images, rather it is social relationship between people that is mediated by images. So not only images though, right? It's this artificial reality, this artificial consciousness, like the show title, Artificial Gnosis. And so the quote unquote thought leaders, right? The thought leaders are all, Elon Musk, they're all in the, all all the people out in Silicon Valley going to Burning Man, So our thought leaders, the head of the snake, they're all into this. They're directing the larger body of society in a certain way. And people want to be like them. So, you consume psychedelics or you know what I mean? You lose yourself in this virtualized world. So anyways, so one of the things though, the whole like communist thing is that destroy the bourgeoisie idea of happiness, destroy congruent social structures, just real life. And then you know what I mean? You don't have to go to a, huge concert and be blasted by super loud sound and take 50 drugs, just to feel something, a little sensation, a little charge. Okay. That's my rant. Sorry, I'm ranting.
Well, you and I were discussing last week the connection that we were beginning to notice with all of the Greek gods as well, tied to all of these rituals.
Yeah, you want to go into that, Jan? It's really
well. It's like Wasson, Carl Ruck, and Albert Hoffman wrote the book Persephone's Quest, for instance. But here, let me pull up the database here, and let's go into the Titans here. And let's see, we had the Titans, the first level, and then the second level. But let's see here. So, goodness, where were we? I had it all.
Greek gods.
What's that?
Greek gods.
Yep. Well, yeah. And okay, so here's Kronos, and then Kronos is the son of Gaia, and his father was Uranus. But okay, so Kronos is also father time, but he's also the eater of his own children. And then Gaia, she's interesting too, because Gaia is part of this, and we hear this whole thing out there about, the Gaia, Earth lovers and all of that. Well, the history behind that is Gaia wants to destroy the world's population and repopulate the Earth. And her mother is Pyra, which is fire and also repopulating the earth. And Pyra, the color fire, that ties into, again, Burning Man. And we go into Pandora, Pandora's box, and, that whole thing. Well, in my opinion, what is Pandora's box but probably black rock or the black stone, the Kaaba stone, etc., and all of
Yeah.
these in all of these rituals. So we go to Burning Man, and we have all these intel people at Burning Man, but it's held at Black Rock Desert Gunnery Range, and so we have Black Rock at the Kaaba, and let me see here, part
Well,
of
how about Jan? I'm about to sneeze here. I have to use a head, but let me just share this real quick. So this is that I have the actual book.
Chronos. Yeah,
It came up. I have the book of Goya paintings. I'm not going to get the book, but it says Saturn devours his young. Well, that's Saturn and Kronos. But look at the eyes, right? Look at those eyes, and then if you notice you know, those eyes like we have in the child sacrifice, the archaeological, excavation of the child sacrifice victim. But okay, so that's just a classic painting. Of course, Goya was a great painter, but this painting for a master artist like this to do this painting, I mean, it was a master. If anyone doesn't know who Goya was, he's not a modern painter. He was still one of the great painters of all time. But this painting, it's extremely, powerful. But go ahead.
that's all right. If you need to go hit the head real quick, I'll talk about this while you go do that.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, going back to the Greek gods here, let me get back to Gaia, and then we have the Titans. But Gaia, where did it go here? So we have Zeus. Now, Carl Ruck wrote a book, Apples of Apollo. Okay, here's Dionysus Bacchus, and that's constantly tied into the whole psychedelic scene, Bacchanalia, all of that stuff. We have Aphrodite, the goddess of love, Venus, and so if you look at a lot of these rituals, they're based on Aphrodite or Venus, and it's passion, pleasure, beauty, love, lust, just like we were looking at in the Aztec Florentine Codex a bit ago. And then Aphrodite backwards is Epidorfa. Now, this guy, this was a book, and it's called Epidorfa, or The End of the Earth, by John Uri Lloyd. And he writes in that book, if in the course of experimentation a chemist should strike upon a compound that in traces would subject his mind and drive his pen to record such seemingly extravagant ideas as are found in the hallucinations herein pictured, would it not be his duty to bury the discovery from others, to cover from mankind the existence of such a noxious fruit of the chemist's or pharmacist's art, introduce such an intoxicant, and start it to ferment in humanity's blood, and before the world were advised of its potential or possible results, might not the ever-increasing potency gain such headway as to destroy or debase our civilization and even to exterminate mankind? So, again, Epidorfa is Aphrodite backwards. Now, here again, we're seeing this whole theme about destroying humanity. Now, this guy, John Uri Lloyd, that wrote that book, he had a kind of a cult following where there's even like a museum and stuff dedicated after him. But it was this huge, like, occult scene surrounding Aphrodite or Venus. But all of these things, we have Persephone's quest, we have Hermes and the Hermetic orders and this kind of stuff right here. And then we have Perseus, Prometheus. Well, who wrote the book on Prometheus but Robert Anton Wilson, or Ra, right? So right in the names of all of the Greek gods, we have a pattern of what this... oh, bless you. We have a pattern of what this CIA psychedelic agenda is about. And a lot of it seems to be destroying the youth of the world and repopulating the world and whatever they want of their image. But apparently, these people think that they're gods. And we had also exposed years ago in my article in Theogen's What's in a Name, we had exposed how, that pedophile, Allen Ginsberg, was writing a poem. So this is from Jay Stevens, his book, Storming Heaven. From there, Jack Kerouac's, Gary Snyder's, and Allen Ginsberg days with William Burroughs, they knew that one of the quickest ways to disrupt the rational mind was with drugs. But not all drugs. Marijuana worked fairly well. But an even better disruptor was peyote and its synthetic cousin, mescaline. LSD didn't enter the beat scene until the end of the 50s, but when it did, it quickly became the tool of choice to achieve that ancient heavenly connection, which is weird spin here because he just said it was all about disrupting the rational mind. Ginsberg took some notes. Ginsberg took some peyote in the fall of 1955, looked out his window, and he, Ginsberg, had a vision of Moloch, the biblical idol whose worship was distinguished by the burning of children. Moloch was America, Ginsberg flashed, and he began writing a poem about this intuition.
Howl, right?
Yep.
And I'm the proud owner of one of Allen Ginsberg's last books of poetry, which is called White Stains. Wonder what that's about.
Jeez. No, I have a more disgusting book from him and William Burroughs called the Yage Letters. Did I ever tell you about that book?
Oh, I've had that book for years, man.
It's absolutely disgusting. So William Burroughs is reporting to Allen Ginsberg, and it's all these reports that are going back to the CIA. Ginsberg was apparently Burroughs' handler. But he's traveling around Peru looking for Yage or ayahuasca, and that's the cover story. But the real story is that he's going around Peru diddling little kids, and he murders one of the kids.
Yeah, and that's and just my experience, my initiation, not in that stuff, but just I had a class in high school, man. This teacher was pushing. Sophomore in high school was pushing LSD, talking about that. He brought up Ginsberg. And I got into that stuff. I got all these. That's why I have copies of all these books. I got some of that stuff when I was like 10th grade, whatever. I thought, these guys are, these are the, this is the freedom from this system. You know what I mean? Like this thing, this world doesn't seem right. Well, this is how we're gonna get out of it, and that's how it's pushed. Like Ginsberg, Burroughs, but Burroughs has a lot of really, really interesting, very, I think, important, stuff that he throws into some of his books. One of them being, this idea, you talked about like the earworm, but like the pop songs, and how the pop songs are actually the secret weapon of formulating, manipulating all of society. And his books, of course, are supposedly cut up, but there's still a coherent narrative. Don't tell me this is cut up. That's BS, right? But his book, and I guess, when I first looked at that stuff, I didn't notice it, but I went back. A lot of it's just really, there's some interesting stuff and some great sort of revelations in there, but there's just a lot of really graphic, really disgusting, perverse types of sexual descriptions, and then of course Burroughs shot his wife accidentally, right? Drunken game of William Tell.
Right? Yeah,
accidentally
and he was already a murderer. Like, I don't know that I buy the whole accidental thing. Do you? He was shooting an apple off of her head or some nonsense. I forget.
Yeah, William Tell. No, but the whole beat scene. Jack Kerouac was kind of like the all-American boy that kind of they roped him into it, right? And Kerouac, talked about this, that, said Allen Ginsberg gave him some kind of mushroom or whatever. He said he said, I never was right in my head since. Of course, there's, you can watch it's one hilarious thing is on, what's his name? The Firing Line, the conservative guy. William F. Buckley, Allen Ginsberg coming on there and play. But Kerouac comes on there when I think he was probably in his late 40s. He just this huge, went from, this god of literature, this he just bloated blob, drunk. But, he said, Ginsberg gave him this drug. It was some kind of mescaline, semi-synthetic mescaline mushroom thing. He said never felt the same again. And that's...
There's apparently a whiskey glass he shot off the head. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But the Beat Generation was, obviously, we're living, the contemporary morality of our society, because of, white privilege. It's just white privilege. It's just screwing everything.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with all of this stuff, right?
Yeah. Hey, man, I got privilege. Pay me. No, I'm kidding. But no, but that, of course, the because there's some topics I talked about, so that's why I wanted to just give you a little bit of stress that he's gonna say something inappropriate, but it's appropriate to say, oh, let's kill all the white people. That's appropriate. You can say all white men should be killed. That's fine. Yeah, you're not gonna get banned for saying that.
Oh yeah, if you say anything else though, it's not appropriate, though. Here's William Burroughs on the screen here. Yage letters down here. Part of the Beatniks under Michael Hollingshead. Apparently was MI6 and CIA. Another worshiper of Hassani Sabah. We haven't brought him up for a little bit. New Albert Hoffman, regular friend of Allen Ginsberg. They also hung out with Joyce Glassman. If those of you who don't know who that is, that's Daniel Pinchbeck's mother. So Daniel Pinchbeck grew up with these two pedophiles at his house. That's the author of Breaking Open the Head and all these nonsense books. He promoted the whole 2012 end of the world stuff, but that he took from CIA agent Michael Coe. And if you want to know about, I don't know if they edited his Wikipedia page, but you could find it that he was CIA right at the top of his Wikipedia entry. I wonder if they took it down here, but it was here somewhere. Yeah, it looks like they may have taken it down. I'll have to read it more closely. But yeah, it used to say right on here that he was a CIA agent, and I called him out for it. He probably had him take it down.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all tied to this, these same people. And Joyce Johnson was one of the early feminists and hanging out with Gloria Steinem. Of course, Gloria Steinem was funded and promoted by the CIA, apparently a Hugh Hefner bunny by the photo there. I might quote Miss Gloria Steinem, one of those so assisted, who commented that the CIA wanted to do what we wanted to do, present a healthy, diverse view of the United States. I never felt I was being dictated to at all. DCI, or Director Central Intelligence, William Colby, quoting Gloria Steinem, and that's directly off of the CIA's own website. But, so they are... A big part of the goal of all of this was to prove to the CIA or to the Soviet Union how free the United States was by promoting all manner of iniquities, psychedelics, modern art, Duchamp signing urinals, the whole thing, the counterculture, Leary. You get all of these socialists and communists to prove how free the West is and how much better the West is than the Soviet Union, even though the CIA had all these leftist, socialist, communist, Marxists in their employ.
Well, and that's, and I had, maybe for another time, but, this whole, the avant-garde, classical music, we have 12-tone stuff, you got Schoenberg, you have, the 12-tone, the breakdown of harmony, you have, you basically create a music that's just, it is psychologically, physiologically, neurologically, spiritually, emotionally incredibly unpleasant and disturbing and potentially damaging. And then with the 12 tone, it's all mechanistic. It's all based on just like your hexadecimal code for your bio, Bluetooth marker, right? Little reference there, people. But I mean, that that music, that was supported, that was funded by the CIA. So CIA was funding Jackson Pollock, to go get drunk and, throw paint on a canvas. And I try, and I have, there's a couple of my paintings, well, you can't see them, but they're dark, but I have a couple paintings. Hey, they're for sale. I don't think I have not, I had this guy at art gallery stole like a bunch of my paintings. Literally, it was like something like out of a movie, and the guy turns out to be some mafia dude, and I never got him back. But hopefully I'll paint again because I enjoy doing it. But it's hard, right? Real painting, it is an art. What Jackson Pollock was doing is like, give me a effing break. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna swear. It's curse. I should get like a little clown horn. But seriously, that was promoted at the same time. You have this extremely esoteric, disturbing, highly dissonant, right? There is no, and it's almost non-human, right? You have these melodic, they're just randomly chosen number streams of sets of pitches, and you have to compose everything on that. That's the only way you could get a job in a university. That's the only funding you could get for a new orchestral score, was if you were writing atonal music or experimental whatever, and that's on like sort of the high level of culture. And the other side, like you mentioned, Marcel Duchamp and the whole Dada and all this and that, you have this thousands of years of European art tradition reaching really a level of absolute mastery and beauty that's, all these artists end up starving to death because they can't sell their paintings, and some dude who's just scrawling some stick figures or pissing in a jar and selling it for $1 million or whatever, that that's where the galleries are buying that. And you have that level of skill. It's like, if you're writing, if you're a Beethoven level musician, and in order to get work you have to like write like some kind of Sex Pistols, or what I mean, or even worse than that song. Can you imagine Beethoven trying to, he's not possible. But the beat thing is very important, because that's the beat generation. This is the, all of these decisions, that, going back to that little quote I had, that little slide, all these decisions have generated, this world that we live in. But I just want to, just some of these pictures of, see if this is going to come up.
I just really quickly, I want to mention, and years ago I did a show on modern art and the CIA, but I recommend people watching this documentary, Hidden Hands, A Different History of Modernism, Art and the CIA. So check that out, and it's on Planet Janet's channel, but definitely want to check this out. It confirms everything that I exposed about modern art on the show nearly a decade ago. There you go. The what's his name?
Bosch.
Bosch, yeah. Hieronymus Bosch.
Hieronymus Bosch. Yeah, so he's, he has some of the most, freaked out imagery. But, the thing is, his modern bio is, no one knows anything about his life. No, he was an initiate in, several of these, occult mystery schools and this and that. But you could see, like, look at these hybrid, these are chimeric creatures, right? These are trans, transspecial. You see these like beings, right? This is so look at that, and then we'll just look at a few of these other pictures here. And I just, but a lot of this information is being disappeared. So some of the stuff I have the actual one, but we can let me just. Can we see? This is like. This is in the 15th century, man. This is
this is the world that Professor Carl Ruck is really big into promoting here.
Can you just start looking at all of these images.
Yeah.
And this is your psychedelic paradise right here. Here's your psychedelic paradise. Welcome.
That's your utopia. Yep.
Here's your utopia. So it's going to slide over. We see some of these, like that. Look, here's your virtual reality bubble, right? I mean, and then it's kind of hard to see. There's all these like weird, demonoid transhuman creatures. It's all, what I'm trying to say is like this, this process, we go to the Mayan stuff. This is all there. It has been there, for a long time. It's just like, it's actually, coming, we're witnessing it coming to fruition, where we can't just be called, whacked out conspiracy theorists, because so it's just a word of the
Can you imagine, like, when you and I started our shows together 13 years ago, we couldn't even predict this level in that time.
No, but so I'll stop this, but there's all kinds of stuff. It's really interesting, worthwhile to check this out.
What's funny is I almost brought up that painting about 30 minutes ago in the show, and then you brought it up. So we're on the same path there.
And just going back to the Greek gods, this is Isis. So this is a quote, from a book, like the 1700 whatever, written about Isis. But the quote is, and see how similar it is to the Mayan ritual a little bit. So these acts or gestures that accompany the incantations constitute the rite of Isis. Okay, so these acts or gestures that accompany the incantations constitute the rite of Isis. In these dances, the beating of drums and the rhythm of music and repetitive movements were helped by hallucinatory substances like hashish or mezcal. These were consumed as adjuvants to create the trance and the hallucinations that were taken to be the visitation of the god. The drugs were sacred, and their knowledge was limited to the initiated, possibly because they had the illusion of satisfied desire and allowed the innermost feelings to escape. These rites acquired during their execution a frenzied character that is conspicuous in certain spells. So, and this is a spell from the worship or rite of Isis, okay? So we have
wow.
But so listen to this. Retreat. Ray is piercing thy head, slashing thy face, dividing thy head, crushing it in his hands. Thy bones are shattered. Thy limbs are cut to pieces. Does that not sound remarkably similar? But that's ISIS, right? Not the CIA, video, guys, with the doing their like really shoddy fake terrorist videos, but the actual ISIS. But so that's ISIS. It's here we go. They bring this stuff up, and how about this real quick? Remember the monoliths that just showed up right in Utah? Remember that?
No.
A few months ago. Yeah. So there were all of the, well, no, I think maybe just one, but there was a big like 2001 monolith mysteriously showed up in some remote region, I believe in Utah, and then it just disappeared from the media. But this shows the whole timeline that all this stuff is on too. So that monolith in Utah, I believe, I'm pretty sure it's Utah, right? Utah. It was just a few months ago. It was just a weird thing.
I'm trying to pull it up, but my computer's got too much stuff going on here.
Yeah. So the Utah monolith. No. Shit, is it gone? There was Okay. Yeah, the Utah monolith was discovered in a remote area of Utah. The metal object is believed to be between 10 and 12 feet high. Reports suggest the object was not officially dropped there. How did officials find it? A Utah Department of Public Safety helicopter was helping the Utah Division of Wildlife Resource count bighorn sheep. Notice bighorn sheep. You know what I mean? Almost like the goat. So that's on top of it.
they
And then they find, yeah, no, but then they
just put
find
it
this
right in
sheep.
your face, though.
But in this totally remote, like desert region, there's this, which must have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not even pushing a million, to install this giant art exhibition, which was never meant to be seen, right? The the monolith, and I believe that there were like they showed up in a few other places, and then the media store just scrubbed, boom, it's just gone. But see, this is from when did this happen? I guess it was.
Why don't you share screen? I can't. My browser's
Oh,
hogged up
sure,
right
sure,
now.
sure. Yeah. But there was I remember there being different. See, there you go. Here's what is it called? Not the Jericho effect. What is it called? The effect where things like change on the internet. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Oh, the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
So I remember this thing being black. And I also remember it being later. But anyways, of course, this stuff is scrubbed, so it's very easy to do this. So here's Utah monolith.
Oh, I see it now.
Yep.
So it disappeared, huh?
Well, the story disappeared. Remote area of Utah, and there were pictures of it that were I remember seeing that were black or whatever, like the 2001. But this is in the middle of nowhere, and they put this up in the middle of nowhere, like in something only tracing bighorn sheep, and then they found this monolith. And so what is it? What are the dates on this? So November 24th, 2020. Okay, so that's I'm being dated. But then, I searched and there was actually this happened. I looked in Romania and a couple other places. These monoliths showed up, and then they're just what I mean. It disappeared. You get a media story, and then boom, it's just gone, right? But okay, you see that first picture looks kind of black.
I just showed one. I found one image. I had to pull up a different browser to get it to go.
Let me stop the share. But what I'm saying is that the stuff, like that story, the monolith, the black stone, Saturn, Chronos,
And we haven't talked about Kubrick for an hour and 15.
Go ahead, go for it.
Well, going back to the whole 2001 Space Odyssey film, it starts off with the monolith, and the apes. So, not even intentionally bringing the whole show full circle.
Well, notice the apes dancing around, and let me just show this. Just reshare this real quick. That notice. So this like Twitter feed, right? Do not the Utah workers that found that, don't they look kind of like apes a little bit? With their green, their monkey suits on. You know what I mean? It's like they look like, you know what I mean? So it's it's so that it's all there.
That had to be staged even because they're surveying bighorn sheep. Come on.
Yeah, the helicopters, and it's literally like it's like you can't get to this region. You cannot. There's no roads. It's just a desert, and they're following bighorn sheep. And then so I mean, again, part of that, there's the revelation of the method, but anyways, what do you think about that ISIS quote? Right? Isn't that interesting? Like ISIS. And they have the hallucinatories, but then the prayers, right? Ray is piercing thy head, slashing thy face, dividing thy head, crushing it in his hands. Thy bones are shattered. Thy limbs are cut to pieces. I won't go. I have a Adorno thing. I won't read that, but.
So Prescott says, Wikipedia says over 200 of these monoliths were created by artists after it was discovered. Sounds like a ritual. Yeah, it does. Probably was.
Yeah, so it became, a fad, and, I didn't.
Yeah.
It just like popped in my head, my crushed head after, reading the ISIS prayer, that seems like, what is it? Blow my mind. Blow my mind. That blows my mind. You want to blow your mind? Is it okay? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
steal your face off your head. Your head, what does that mean? Well, you steals your face, your identity, yourself, and then your head is just your experiential intoxication space without any discipline, and you become like a worm, like you become these, well, that the Mayan quote, whether your hair is falling out and, the 70-year-old woman is shaking her stuff, and I mean, what a pitiful, well, I mean, it's not even pitiful. It's just, oh, it is what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all black ritual magic. And the thing is it plays on people's unawareness of it going on, and they get pulled into it, like the whole rock music scene that you and I, shoot, when was that series? 2014 we did that? Something like that. Long time ago. Man, music, mind control, and psychobiology. Wasn't that, like, was that 2014 or 15? It was like 7-8 years ago we did that series. Yeah. Can you believe that?
Well, the funny thing is, John, is that, like, okay, one thing, man, I am pissed at you about this.
What's that?
You told me, it's like, dude, Bitcoin. It's like, don't buy Bitcoin. It went up to like $500 a coin.
I never said don't buy it.
No, you said, oh, no, because it was like real. I'm just kidding. But no, that was, and remember, you had another guest. You're like, hey, dude, can you do the, because we hadn't, talked occasionally after we did that first show, and then you're like, hey, I had a guest cancel. Do you want to do this topic, right?
Yeah, remember that? Yeah, well, that's right. And it was, Jason was one of the two Martineau, the brothers or cousins, and one of them was the pianist, and I had wanted to do a music mind control episode because I started seeing music being tied into all this mind control MK Ultra stuff. And then for whatever reason, I don't remember exactly, he backed out of doing the show. Maybe realized that, I wanted to expose the agenda and he didn't want it exposed. But I had him on regarding his quadrivium book on the music aspect of the quadrivium. And so he backs out, and then I was just like, oh, well. So I contacted you, and I hadn't spoken in a while, and you said, well, let me give it some thought. And you weren't sure at first, and then you gave it some thought and you said, yeah, I think you're right. But you had, a PhD in ethnomusicology to back it up. So, here we are. You were just about to get your PhD back then.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I started before I graduated. Okay. But, yeah, no, well, no, is that, what I have to say is that, like, that, to be able, to be able to research, and I try to, I like to draw in a lot of levels. I mean, that's kind of like one thing I did with my academic research is looking at not just one specific mode, but trying to see all these interconnections, and that, but just also just looking at the thing, and I know I had, I knew, for a long time, like I didn't like rock music. I was like either a jazz purist. I got into Indian classical music. So, but I didn't really think about it that much. I just knew that, like, I don't really like these environments. Like, I remember, in Goa, there was like a whole forest. It was like this turned into a huge rave. And this is before I knew any of that stuff. And, I mean, any of the research stuff, but I was just there and I'm like, it's that mechanistic beat, and I could just feel what it was doing to the people. I knew I didn't want to be in that environment. I knew it was affecting me in a way that I didn't like. We just viscerally, you know what I mean? And I could, but just taking that topic, and you see where it leads you, man. I can understand why you wouldn't, if you know more about it, why you wouldn't want to do that topic, because it goes into everything. It connects and goes and goes and goes, and it's foundational, because the music, as that that invisible, right, that social glue, these things that I mean, you can just imagine you go out and suddenly, like, no one can understand what you're saying, right? Or else the sort of your LSD-induced schizophrenic break, where every object around you you see all these objects, but they're all floating. They're all completely separate from each other. Yeah. There's no congruency. Or you don't know, like, I'm holding this up. What is this? What is that? Oh, hey, I'm gonna get a product placement. All right.
Well,
I have,
that looks like Q-tip.
no, but you know what I
I'm
mean? What I'm
kidding.
saying?
It's obviously an ink pen.
Well, it's a planet. It's from the gym that I
Oh,
don't go to.
okay. That you
So
don't
they
go
might.
to.
I was supposed to go today, but I didn't go. But I will. But
But yeah, I mean, it's all of this is selling of anti-reality. Reality doesn't exist. Primacy of consciousness. Everything is just a projection, and it obviously goes back way before Aldous Huxley's Doors of Perception, but he was obviously a big promoter of it, and and they probably all worship Hassan Isabah because of his contributions, and Emanuel Swedenborg, and then Timothy Leary. All of these guys, they all promote this stuff, but there is an element of psychopaths that use it as a method of control, if that makes sense.
well,
Because they seem to tell their prey that reality isn't real and everything is just a projection of your own mind, so that so that you think that there aren't actually predators out there with their own agency.
or you so of course all of these things, right? There's always some basis like in truth. So even like the perennial philosophy or Alan Watts, right? He's like, okay, well you are one with the divine. You're this. There are levels where that actually happens. There are states or positions, stages, right, that can be reached. But these are things that it's very dangerous, and it's unnecessary to dispute the reality of the external physical environment. In
Right.
fact, the grounding of yourself and your body, your body is grounded here in this physical world. It's one of, for me, using that Husserl, the German phenomenologist philosopher, it's called phenomenological reduction, which I mentioned, but it's like called the bracketing of experience, where you take one type of perception and you just focus on that. You kind of cut everything else out, not pretending it's not there, but see, how is this image actually occurring in my mind, or how is it occurring in my ocular nerve? It's just clarifying being very precise, very clear with your experience, and as opposed to deranging your experience.
Well,
And that's one of the sort of the love childs of this thing. Oh, by the way, Hieronymus Bosch died at age 66. Mister, yeah. So,
so oh, now I just forgot what I. Oh, going back to Alan Watts, and he, of course, was part of the CIA's MK Ultra program. We can find him in the letters of
I didn't know
Aldous.
that.
We can find him in the letters of Aldous Huxley, where Aldous
Oh
Huxley
wow.
was recruiting him. But if we go to Alan Watts in the database, he helped create the Summer of Love at the Houseboat Summit, where he had Allen Ginsberg and Leary and Ramdas and all of these guys there to plan the Summer of Love. But he took this whole double bind thing from CIA co-founder Gregory Bateson to essentially cause or to create schismogenesis, to create schizophrenia in the people who followed their line of meditation, which was also, not only denying reality, but it was designed to cause a psychotic break in the person practicing it. But, that was something that Gregory Bateson, one of the key people behind MK Ultra, and again, a founder of the CIA, he was who created native revivalism, and he was behind cybernetics and the Macy Foundation conferences and all of this stuff. But they created that double bind, and then they had Alan Watts go and promote it to the public. Now, interestingly, Alan Watts was behind the creation of the Pacifica Foundation, which is the big promoter of communist leftism in the United States. The KPFA, KPFT, KPFB in Berkeley, etc. But yeah, so I have a quote here somewhere. Right here, this is from the letters of Aldous Huxley, October 17, 1952. In regard to research, I think we should make it quite clear that there is no intention of undertaking any microphysiological investigations of the nerves, electric potentials, etc., and that we are interested in and that what we are interested in is the molar phenomena of the human organism as a whole. Now, why would Aldous Huxley, the key architect of the CIA's MKUltra program, be writing to Alan Watts what kind of research that they are interested in doing when Alan Watts is the hippie LSD philosopher? Unless he's not really just the hippie LSD philosopher. Alan Watts was a big theosophist. He was at the Millbrook Mansion with CIA agent Timothy Leary, part of the Hollyhock Institute, heavily influenced again by Aldous Huxley, and influenced guys like Richard Alpert or Dick Ramdas, etc. And he was part of Tim Leary's International Federation of Internal Freedom group. So, but he was literally one of the guys behind the creation of the Summer of Love with Allen Ginsberg, Timothy Leary, Gary Schneider. He was, part of this whole thing. The human being, all of this stuff was part of the CIA's MKUltra agenda that was spun into a peace, love, hippy-dippy nonsense type of thing, again, to create schizophrenia and a psychotic break in the people that listened to all of these people. They wanted you following a primacy of consciousness nonsense philosophy that reality isn't real.
Well, and also the destabilization, right? Which we didn't get into that. Sorry, it looks like there's some house guests upstairs. I'm not sure who they are. What's going on?
Yeah, it's 2 hours. We can wrap it up here.
No, it's fine. We'll keep rolling with this, man, because you know what? I'm like easy rider, man. No, this is like the reason Alan Watts, like I got these, like my family, I probably told you, from like one half of my family's all straight California, knew like Henry Miller, Ramakrishna, even Alan Watts, my grandmother was kind of connected with that. My grandfather was very much connected with it. He was a big connected with the socialist stuff. He didn't know he was a pretty righteous guy. He stopped the drilling of drilling oil. He stopped Rockefeller drilling oil in in Long Beach Harbor. But but it's still, I was kind of raised in that, and I had all these books, right? They were given to me. Some of them, these are like at like 12, 13, 15 years old. Alan Watts, The Wisdom of Insecurity, Alan Watts, these little paperbacks, right? Those really, really damaged me, even probably more than doing psychedelics, because, like I said, I didn't know Alan Watts was connected with MKUltra. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I keep getting all these.
In my early mid-20s, I used to sit there and listen to Alan Watts on KPFK all the time, and I didn't even know he was behind the creation of the Pacifica Network. And I would sit there and try to do his ridiculous double-bind meditations and all this crap, but when you're young and gullible, you fall into all that junk.
Well, I'm just going to read some quotes, just Alan Watts quotes. Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. Well, I mean, it seems like in me, this is like, it's a Zen koan. It's contradictory. Well, wait, trying to define yourself. Well, I can define myself. In fact, I should define myself based on what I'm doing at the time. I'm talking to Jan. If I define myself as a male dancer, as a male, escort dancer, when I'm talking to you, Jan, and I start like taking my clothes off and dancing in the background, that's a bad definition.
That's
So
that's not a mental image I needed. Thanks, Hans.
I don't know why that came to me. I just thought of the most. Sorry, man. Oh my god.
Oh.
Oh, man, I don't know
I was
why
going to
that.
ask you if you were going to start dancing at the Epstein Island,
No, man. I mean, I'm not a good dancer, dude. I mean, that's the. I mean, I joke my wife. I'm like, oh yeah, I got a gig tonight. I'm being hired by a bunch of 20 somethings.
Someone says utterly gross.
Oh my god. I'm being shut down. Well, no, and so I can now. Anyways,
Oh,
that was a bad. I should have done it. That's what just popped in my head. But because of the absurdity though of that quote. Okay, man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. What is that?
yeah. Well, that sounds like the gods we talked about earlier, the Greek gods that are trying to destroy the world and humanity, and they promote all of the iniquity and debauchery to undermine society.
Okay,
I
I'll just read a few more of these quotes because they're really prescient, so to speak. We seldom realize, for example, that our most private thoughts and emotions are not actually our own. For we think in terms of languages and images which we did not invent, which were given to us by our society. So see how pernicious and diabolical this actually is. We seldom realize. So look, these are very, these type of, advanced, mind control speakers like John Lennon. I do not, maybe Theodore Adorno wrote the Beatles lyrics. I kind of doubt it because, but anyways, there's a lot of nuance and it's very important because these are creating subconscious pathways and affirmations and acceptances. And the, basically like when things don't make sense, we kind of almost become unconscious or kind of push it out of our mind, right? Does that make sense? So when you have something that doesn't, you just say, oh, that doesn't mean anything. But some of it kind of means something, and this is how sort of the cybernetic application of this stuff goes on. So we seldom realize. So that means we seldom, but we do realize it sometimes. Okay, seldom realizes. We seldom realize, for example, what? I mean, so that's totally general, right? Seldom realize, but seldom means sometimes we realize it. But here's the example. Of course, the example is the core of the statement, right? So we have a flip, inversion of meaning. We have, general and specific cases being juxtaposed that are most private thoughts and emotions, not our thoughts and emotions, some of our thoughts of emotions, but our most private thoughts and emotions, the core of what we are. Not, you know what I mean? Not just, I can, well, okay, I'll give you an example. Like I opened myself up to ridicule, right? By doing that. It just popped in my head. So maybe I was thinking ahead. Okay, so I was ridiculed. And now I'm like, no, I'm going to show you I can dance. It's not disgusting. No, just kidding. I will not. But no, literally, like, I mean, I was like, what a stupid, spontaneous metaphor to come up with. Terrible. I mean, it was terrible. I could not come up with a worse one. Like, it was like the ghost of Alan Watts haunting me. Seriously, I mean, but think about that. So our most private thoughts and our emotions are not actually our own. So that means the core of our beings are not our own. Like, well, I would say that. So look at that. It's just a few words.
Yeah, this is exactly what Steve Jones and I and Kieran covered in a recent show. Per these people who follow in primacy of consciousness philosophy, there is only one philosophy because you are it, and it's not your own philosophy because it's everybody's, but at the same time, there's only one philosophy. So under their system of belief, it can only be you, right?
But it's see what we have here is this the schismogenesis, right? So the double bind. What is this? I have not looked at it.
Someone said, "Don't take your shirt off. I don't want to see your udders." You're not gonna laugh at that? Come on, that's a good self-deprecating joke there.
I don't. I'm not. That's not. I'm not saying that to myself, man. That's utter dick.
That's utterly ridiculous.
So that. Oh my God! I've ruined my career. I gotta turn around. No, but there you go. See, so there you go. Like you see my. I mean,
Sorry, I didn't.
but no, but okay. By that absurd example, though, you have to define yourself for roles, right? If you're never defined. Well, okay, no, yeah, at a certain point, maybe if you reach a state of integration, then you can just you can flow through life without this. But if you're inchoate, if you're not aware, if you're not intelligent, if you're not, you have to have some boundaries and definitions of yourself. In fact, if
As
you define
guidance, it's a guidance.
well, it's a guidance, but it also is it creates clarity and simplifies. It doesn't create difficulty. But anyways, let me just finish this short quote because it's such a mind control treasure trove in these like two sentences, literally two sentences. So again, we seldom realize, for example, that our most private thoughts and emotions are not actually our own. For we think in terms of language and images that we did not invent. Well, do we have to invent language? Do we have to? That goes, why we all speak languages. Dogs bark, birds chirp. There's a language is part logos, languaging is part of
The word,
any,
right?
even trees communicate. Trees communicate with with infrasonic sound under the earth. There's trees have networks of communication. In fact, right, they communicate through these very low resonant frequencies like electrical impulses. So communication language is there. So we think in terms of language which we did not invent, but which were given to us by our society. So our society is now evil for giving us language and images that we didn't invent. Then my own private thoughts and emotions, I don't own them anymore.
Right.
It means, so look what a head fuck that is. If you took that seriously, think about that.
And
People,
that's Alan Watts's quote, right?
yeah, Alan, these are all Alan Watts quotes.
Okay, that's and it's the same. It's in line with the nonsense that Aldous Huxley's close pal Jiddu Krishnamurti promoted too. But one thing that Watts omits there is defining terms.
Yeah. Well, not only defining terms, but just I'll read two more quotes. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and obvious and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves.
So you should just be on a street corner, drugged out, panhandling, and a wreck until you overdose and die, apparently.
Well,
or in the case of Alan Watts, drink yourself to death.
Well, that's because probably his karmic guilt from what he was doing, because he got set up as this Zen master guru with his funky mustache. I remember like his houseboat, the houseboats, you live in the Golden State.
I went to his houseboat, 2016 or so. I went over there to the houseboat and looked at it.
I've seen it too, man.
Yeah.
But again, the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and obvious and so simple. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. He's a great writer. This is great as really, unless, you read it, you kind of gloss over the words, but it is very advanced, mental programming language, right? It's very advanced cybernetic, schismogenic language. Okay, just to be alive, the meaning of life, just to be alive. And yet everybody rushes around in a great panic. Oh, as if it was necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. Well, Heidegger, says, the main thing is that the whole point of being alive is to reach beyond yourself, right? To go beyond yourself. And that is, if that is it, just to be alive. Well, what if I'm on, I'm on a ventilator in a hospital? That's the meaning of life. I've succeeded. I'm not in, um,
Well,
okay. And
well, Prescott says, empty your mind and melt into the great oneness, but nothing exists outside your mind. Ah, screw it. Just do drugs and let us enslave you.
the menu is not the meal. You are a
Right.
function of what the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is a function of what the whole ocean is doing. Through our eyes, the universe is perceiving itself. Through our ears, the universe is listening to its harmonics. We are witnessing through which the universe become conscious of its glory, of its magnificence. So there you have, there always has to be some kernel of truth, but then what is the universe, right? The universe. So you have all these vagaries. I have realized the past and future are real illusions. They exist in the present, which is what there is and all there is. I mean, I remember reading that which, yes, is that true? It is true. In obviously in one way, but without our past, it's not past and future. It's not like we're going to time travel, right? It's not like we're going to, change our skin color. Well, we can change our skin color or genders, if we want to now, but that's part of this whole.
Well, I'm a non-binary horse.
Yeah, there you go, man. So
I can't do a pole dance though, because I'm a horse.
My God, that will go down. Like I'm gonna have to get psychotherapy, man. You're probably not even like giving me the. Yeah, and that was a negative example. I'm not defining.
Dude, it was funny. It was funny. Just laugh, roll with it. It was hilarious.
No, I'm now. I've been pushed to the edge. I may actually do it.
Oh yeah.
I'm such. I am really. I love. Okay, I'll be honest.
You're a doctor of music. You don't need to be a dancer.
No, I am. I've had people tell me that, like I learned the one thing I do innocently, right? I'm very, any activity, writing, this, that, music, I'm very strict with aesthetic codes. Dancing, I love dance. I have a passion. I studied Bharatanatyam dance in India. So I did a little show. The entire audience literally just collapsed in paroxysms of laughter. I mean, they literally fell down. I mean, they were sitting, but I mean, so my dance is it's inadvertently funny, but I do it seriously. But I don't dance much. In fact, I guess people would say I'm horrible at dance, but I do it so honestly and innocently. I mean, I could these are I'm not gonna Krishna playing his flute. It's not very erotic, is it?
The whole Esalen Institute agenda.
Well, Dragon, but that I really want to, I think, thank you, or if I brought up Alan Watts, thank myself, but I'll thank you for bringing that up because I didn't know he was connected with MK Ultra, but so between the first few quotes I read, right? And then you look, he's got stuff, go with the flow, jump in the stream of life. The universe is seeing itself through you. You're the voice. The universe is hearing its own harmonics through you. Well, but then it's like your deepest feelings and emotions are not your own. Wait, so you, Alan Watts, are going inside of my own mind and saying, because society gave me a language and images that I didn't create those images. So what, I have to build entire civilization myself? And then you go to Jerry Garcia, right? Or the modern 6G metaverse, where you have your own little bubble of your own little thought projections. You've lost the stream. You've lost, you know what I mean? So you see these inversions, and yet there's a thing of like certain things in life will settle, right? If you learn to be fully present and be fully aware, and to be able to face things without reaction. I mean, reaction means that, you have a stimuli and, someone says something and immediately, you get angry. Okay, then every time someone says that, you're going to get angry. Or every time, you see you know what I mean? Like every time you see a female or a male, you want to copulate, or, you know what I mean? Like all these things are habitual reactions. These are prisons of thought that require that the loosening of these bonds of whatever they are, addictions or traumas, whatever they may be. But then see how it's inverted, right? Go with the flow, but then nothing's real, and then you're actually the universe. And so you're taking LSD and you're hanging out with Alan Watts on his houseboat, or you're doing your microdosing and you're working for Silicon Valley in 2022. Same process. You're going in your own head. You're no longer, you get, I don't know if that you're following me, but
yeah, I do. Well, and who came up with microdosing? That was James Fadiman, whom I interviewed over a decade ago, and he was one of the last to do legal LSD experiments in, 1970, I think it was. And his wife was a merry prankster, and they were part of that whole MK Ultra scene. So, yeah, all that same tight little group.
Yeah. Well, hey, I think
good place to wrap it up.
Yeah. There's
well, we've only done 50 shows, so that's like probably 140 hours worth of material. Could you imagine listening to you and I straight through all of that? Like you and I have talked about putting together you said DVD, a flash drive or something with all of our greatest hits or something, which would be cool to do, but I'm not sure I could listen to us for 140, 150 hours of stuff to put it together, or just maybe a whole archive and put that out in one piece. That would be kind of cool, but.
Well, I mean, just as a record, because a lot of the stuff is disappearing, right? I mean,
yeah,
disappearing. And this, like, I just had my phone. So my phone crashed. I totally just, bricked. And I lost a huge amount of data recordings. Trying to recover it. But there you go. It's totally, not that things are not, impermanent as they are, but I mean, like, you think all this stuff on the internet is going to be there. They're already modifying. You look up search terms, you can't find it. Even if you use, other search engines, it's not there.
Yeah.
Or it's being spun. And so,
well, you and I have seen our work together taken by numerous other authors and researchers and spun and repackaged into lesser versions of what we put it out as,
Well, the thing is that this is, it's not just one thing, right? It's not like this is just a 1 point, thing that you understand this thing and you grasp it. I mean, there's a lot of forces going on here, but they're all interconnected, right? And we continually to see how these intersections occur. And I didn't even go like mystery schools. I mean, you look at I'm gonna throw this out real quick. This is like my last solo here, like
right.
Coltrane. I'll probably never do another show after talking about me doing erotic dancing. That's it. It's over. No. So Scofield, right? John Scofield with the Scofield Reference Bible. So his teachers, one of his teachers, I mean, his main sort of guru or main presenters was Westcott, right? And so B.F. Westcott was the professor of divinity at Oxford, and he founded the Hermes. Yep, he founded the Hermes Society. So So Westcott's Club, yeah, at Cambridge, called the Hermes Society. We going back to the Greek gods, the Hermetic, you know, etc.
Somebody brought this up to me today. This guy Carl brought it up to me today that
Oh,
the
Westcott,
Ecofield Bible was all Crowleyan group design.
really? Maybe he's got. What he has a. Is he spying on me? He's copying my research.
I don't know, dude. It was like,
Dude, I'm kidding. I'm
what do
kidding.
you, what do you, oh, I know. But he just, dude, it was weird because we were just talking about it today.
Well, Westcott founded the Ghost Society.
Oh, you're talking about Westcott and Hort, right?
Yeah, Westcott Hort. Yep.
Yep.
And so this connects with the whole occult revival. In a book, Laba, which is very interesting. It's a novel, but the author was, very much into this. So, but anyways, this, but that like that Bible, the Ghost Society. I mean, these are the entire, process. Um, the where they have, the Renaissance, which this, in influx of, not that, I'm not for like, this is wrong, this, that's not, but we don't really know. We have such a distorted view of history, right? Unless you research, like, like I thought, until I watched, no, Apocalypso, honestly, when I saw it, I thought, Apocalypto, I mean, my friend has a band called Apocalypso, and they do heavy metal songs on steel drum. So, but, when I first saw it, I thought it was almost like a fiction. No, that's real, right? That's as close to real as you're gonna find, in the the mainstream media, right? Of what was going on with the sacrifice, with the intoxication, right? And you can see, all the society women in that, you know what I mean? With maybe you missed that, but you can see the denizens of the city, right? The elites and how they're all, totally on drugs and decadent and almost like rotting, from the inside. Um, that's what they're selling us as liberation, okay? And in fact, you're not even being liberated. You're part of the Blue Man Group. You're going to be put up there on the altar, right? And and your terror and your fear and your negative emotions, which is what 6G feeds off of, right? The 6G network is supposedly going to feed off of all the all these. It's a biosymbiotic internet. Um, you know.
This is from
Anyway,
Timothy Leary's professor at Harvard, David McClellan. It is probably no accident that the society which consistently encouraged the use of these substances, India, produced one of the sickest social orders ever created by mankind, in which thinking men spent their time lost in the Buddha position under the influence of drugs, exploring consciousness, while poverty, disease, social discrimination, and superstition reached their highest and most organized form in all history.
who's that quote from?
David McClelland, Harvard University. That's Timothy Leary's professor, one of his professors at Harvard.
Well, I mean, there's truth to that, and there's things that are not true. But what was Leary promoting? I mean, at least, let me say this: at least, the actual yogic traditions of India, if you follow them, they're extremely disciplined. They require, tremendous discipline that most people can't even imagine having. Okay, but this is his professor, his mentor, and what is he promoting? Exact same thing, except without even the discipline of an actual authentic, you know what I mean? An authentic spiritual practice. And that's the whole thing. That's, your own guru. That's the Alan Watts. But what it does is it, just to, I mean, like, seriously, I was psychologically, like Alan Watts, I mean, I technically I could probably like beat him up. for what he did to me. I could, I won't say anything other than that, even though he's already dead a
Well,
thousand times over.
I've fantasized about, you know, if Aldous Huxley used to live on the next mountain ridge over, if he were alive today, I'd have a pill for him.
Well, no, but just think, like when I went through those quotes, not to, to belabor them, but these are, just little drops. But, when you're looking for something, right, you're innocent, so to speak, right, in the world. And then you've got this thing, or like, oh, you are the universe. Just let the universe play through you. Just relax and let go. Oh, the purpose of life, just to be alive. Your inmost thoughts and feelings are not your own. The deepest part of yourself is not you. Look at that. That's schismogenesis.
Yep.
It's even double. So you're projecting outwards that, oh, I'm the universe, but you are totally blocking access to your own self.
Isn't that the definition of a double bind right there?
Yeah, well, it's a double bind, but it's more than a double bind, right? It is a double bind, but it's, it's a replacement. The schismogenesis is not double bind. It's sort of a cover because double bind doesn't necessarily create schizophrenia, right? Double bind can be employed in a schismogenic process, but schismogenesis is when you have the superseding of internal, your internal states and subjective reality is, you interpret that as real, right? The schizophrenic, sees, the UFOs are landing or whatever, and he's just living in that world. But there's a gap, and the gap is also the language and definition. And so a double bind is just one component of the whole system. So, okay. Oh, yeah.
All right, so let's see. Chaos Theory says, please put together a Hans and Jan archive for purchase. Censorship escalating. Great way to support both of you and retain the knowledge and share your insights. Yeah, I can work on that. I'm pretty sure I have all of our shows archived. I can put a USB together and make that available. We can figure something out. But anyway, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. 2.5 hours. That's a long one. And not that we haven't.
If you want to do like 5 minutes, if any people had any questions or anything like that, I don't know. I don't have the.
Anybody have any questions? There was a lot. The comments have been pretty busy tonight. Any questions, folks? Before we wrap it up here, quickly. I'm not gonna scroll through hundreds of comments and trying to find questions, but yeah. So anyway, who cuts your hair?
Who, Jan or me?
Oh boy, Rudolph Steiner. Oh boy, let's see. Anyway, I don't see any.
That's fine. Yep. Well.
What got you? What got you into dancing? Was Cash CIA? Cash was around before the CIA. Anyway, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Hans, you want to give out your contact information?
Yeah. I've got my Hotmail account still going somewhat. Hans@hotmail.com. mindcontrolmusic.wordpress.com, which I'm going to be updating soon. I've got a number of new titles coming out, record label. I've got some CDs and I've got a bunch of books that are going to be forthcoming.
You got to give me get me a copy of that hardcover too. I want a copy of that.
Yeah, that's rare, man. They're like
autograph.
It's crazy how much, man. It costs so much to publish books now, man.
Yeah.
Maybe it always did, but it's like crazy. It's like, but yeah, that's there. There's a few copies of that left. And,
I want one.
But I'm always, like I said, I will respond. And so I'm just more interested in communication and, creating the those that will survive, or maybe we've already survived. Maybe Jan, maybe you and I have saved the planet. Our show
Maybe.
last week may have saved the earth. So,
Dude, that show was epic, I gotta say.
yeah. So,
So,
all right.
all right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Please go to logosmedia.com and donate. There's also donations down below in the show description for the show. Go to Patreon, etc. And please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll have to have Hans back again someday soon for number 51. So thank you, everybody, and good night.
Good night.